Barbara Boxer is back in the political ring with her podcast, Fight Back with Barbara Boxer, every Thursday on Podcast One. She's tackling today's hottest issues alongside her daughter, Nicole, with notable guests like Senator Dianne Feinstein. What?
We weren't recording on either channel.
Fantastic. Let's start it again.
Barbara Boxer is back in the political ring with her podcast, Fight Back with Barbara Boxer, every Thursday on Podcast One. She's tackling today's hottest issues alongside her daughter, Nicole, with notable guests like Senator Dianne Feinstein and more. Download Fight Back with Barbara Boxer at Podcast One and Apple Podcasts. Also remember to rate and review.
This is Penn Sunday School, and to our listening
Oh, this is going to be a good one.
all angels sings and round us rings the music of the
Brothers and sisters, welcome to Penn Sunday School, starring Penn Gillette. My name is Michael Ludeau, and Reddy Rich is sitting in Matt's chair today. We are broadcasting from Show Creator Studios in Las Vegas.
You timed
On
that
this
well.
week's show, Penn is glad James Comey is tall. David Byrne rips off Penn. We'll say goodbye to Harry Anderson, and we might talk about the superhero Black Lightning. Here he is preaching love, Mr. Penn Gillette.
Yeah, preach and love, preach and love, preach and love. Yeah, you know what? We got to...
Can I just say he hit both posts?
You did.
Nice, huh?
Very nice.
Probably that was probably your best.
Thanks.
And if I hadn't been talking when you came in, would have been even better.
Probably not.
But I can't really blame you for that, can I?
Yeah, sure you can.
Okay.
You're the boss.
Okay, I'll
That's what
blame
being the boss is about.
Harry Anderson.
Harry Anderson died.
You know, and remember when you were like 17, 16, and like someone would say, boy, he died at 66. He was really young.
Right.
You'd go, that's crazy.
That's
That's
really
crazy.
old.
He's
yeah.
really old, yeah. But now I'm 63. How old are you, 60?
59, yeah.
59. And Harry Anderson died really young.
That seems really scary, yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, Harry, I didn't know Harry well. We can't, do you know
We
him?
worked with him on Sin City Spectacular at
Yeah,
one point.
but a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. Helped a lot of young magicians. You know, when you're looking
Very
at my,
generous with his time.
very
yeah.
generous with his time and with his tricks.
Yeah.
And, you know, people know him from Night Court and the Dave Barry thing he did. I guess he was wasn't he on Cheers?
Yeah, yeah.
He was on a bunch of shows I never watched once. So I didn't know him at all from TV. I didn't even see him on Saturday Night Live. and
Right.
stuff.
Most people don't know him as a magician. Most
Yeah,
people know him
but-
as an actor.
But I just know him as a magician.
Right.
And a very good one. Really, really funny.
Creative.
And really original ideas that I think I didn't watch a lot of what he did because at the time he was talking a lot about scams
Right.
and so on, and so were we.
Harry the Hat.
Yeah, Harry the Hat. So he was talking a lot about scams, and so were we. And I didn't want to ever step on him or anything.
Right.
So I didn't want to be accused really because he's much more famous than we are, and so if we did something that Harry Anderson did, it would look less good. He did the version I loved of what he did was his version of You Do Voodoo,
Yeah.
which is the needle through the arm,
Sure.
which of course some people do for reals. I mean,
Some people didn't know that was a trick.
yeah, exactly.
That's what that comes down to.
David,
I can do that.
David,
Ow, fuck.
David Blaine does that for reals.
Yeah.
Why? And Harry Anderson doing it fake, 1,000 times better than David Blaine doing it for real. Because doing it for real, by the way, not a trick.
Not so much, yeah. Not so much skill.
Yeah, not skill. No, not skill. Just it's kind of a Gordon Liddy thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
I can do this.
David Blaine's going into Gordon Liddy territory, and Harry Anderson was really good. I don't want to misrepresent this. I spent probably totally in my life 3 hours
Right.
with Harry Anderson. We were at one. I think we were at one Magic Castle Academy of Arts awards show with him, and he did Sin City Spectacular once with his son, and that was it. So I don't want to misrepresent it just because he's died.
Yeah.
But boy, people that I know really well, who knew him really well, had nothing but good to say.
They did,
And
yes.
he was a great guy, and he will be missed. And 66 is young.
All of a sudden.
Really young all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know what? Speaking of being in your 60s, how did Paul McCartney slip by the age of 64 without everybody torching him with his stupid song? How did that happen? I realize that he's now like 74, right? Did 64 go by and we didn't make fun of him?
I think maybe we weren't paying attention. I think other people probably made fun of him for it.
You think so?
I would imagine so.
I would hope so.
It was in between the radio show and the podcast.
Is that why?
Yeah.
So that's why we didn't make fun of him.
We could do a time capsule episode.
I'm going to double check the math on that.
But
'cause
I
that's
would've-
probably a lie.
I would have thought that he had been very, very cruel. And I also thought if I were Paul McCartney, well, first of all, if I were Paul McCartney, the whole world would be very, very.
Yes, it would.
But if I were Paul McCartney, I would pressure my offspring when they were having children very, very hard to name them Vera, Chuck, and Dave.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you push for
Yes,
that?
absolutely. I think you wouldn't have any options.
And if they didn't name them Vera, Chuck, and Dave, I would call them Vera, Chuck, and Dave. Wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
What are their
Why
names?
would there be any question?
Yeah.
Like I said, it would just come popping out. They would have the names already tattooed on their asses.
I believe he wrote that song pre-Beatles. I believe he wrote that song when he was like 15 or 16.
Really?
Yeah. It's a pretty shitty song.
Okay.
Or do you like?
I like, of course. Yeah. What are you
The
talking
sun will come out
Yeah.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
But you mean the turn is obvious on the fact that it's an ad. It's an obvious
It's
turn.
the hard knock life.
The turn is obvious. The middle eight is not great.
I love it.
You do?
I do.
And also the instrumentation is obvious.
You are just grumpy today. What's happened?
I'm not grumpy because
Do you remember last week we were talking on email and we discovered that we were just wrong about everything ever. Grammatically, you were talking about how you had made.
We're going to get to that with the chord stamp.
Yeah, I understand, but one of the things we decided was that everybody is right and no one is wrong.
You're right.
And so we should just go, it's the greatest song ever, until we listen to the next song, and then that's the greatest song ever.
It's very important to point out that was 2 weeks ago.
That
So
was
you're
2
wrong about that.
This is not ever going to get better, is it? We're just going to be dicks forever.
So many, many years ago, when would this have been? In the 80s sometime. Really, really, really
Okay.
long time ago. Before Paul McCartney was 64. How did we miss that? I would have thought they would have had like a whole Today Show tacky package. Hey, he turned 64 today. When I get older, losing my hair.
I promise you, everyone did but us. I promise you. Nobody missed it.
Now, here's what. I
Us.
always complain that things weren't on TV, and then I am told that's because you don't watch TV. I have never watched the Today Show once in my life, and now I'm complaining that the Today Show didn't do something because I didn't see it. Do you think the Today Show had a When I'm 64 on Paul McCartney?
I'm sure everybody in the media said
Everybody.
something on
Every
that
single
day.
person on earth but you.
And it just flew by me. I don't
Closing
know.
segment on the evening news
It was a segment.
nationwide.
You're sure of it?
Where they put the surfing dog. That day it was Paul McCartney.
He turned 64. Beatle Paul McCartney, he's turned 64. I wonder if he's just like this. I wonder if his grandchildren are Vera, Chuck, and Dave. But I got to tell you, how hip is our show that we were doing that, what?
Yeah.
11 years later.
Yeah, June 16th, 2006. Every article in the world says June 16th, 2006. At last, Sir Paul McCartney is turning 64.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Every article.
Every article. New York Times, Forbes, Fox News, New York Daily News.
Fake news. So we're going to start out the show as we usually start out the show with me being dead ass wrong, right?
As always.
So many, many years ago. But it did come out between the radio show and the podcast, right?
2006.
Right? Wasn't that between the two? When he turned 64?
I think we're off by 2 months or something like that.
Okay. So there's no as I claw, like as I leave my
Desperately.
fingernails in the Silence of the Lamb dungeon trying to pull myself out, there's no hope.
You're just going down.
I have to
Double checking.
Admit that you just missed it.
I missed it.
You missed it.
I missed it. And if I had been aware of it, I would have been disgusted that they did it, and then complained later that they didn't.
Yeah, you were on the air.
There's no pleasing me.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we'll probably find out if you go back to that.
Yeah, we
show.
probably did that show.
You're probably wrong in so
Turns
many
out when
layers.
you get older and losing your hair, you also lose your memory. And it's entirely possible we did a whole show based on it and just have no memory of it whatsoever.
So many years ago in the 80s, we did a show, Stephen Banks and I. Stephen Banks, for those who don't know,
You've made a terrible mistake with your life.
big writer on SpongeBob.
Yep.
Main head writer on SpongeBob. Also does Billy the Mime, which is the best live show you can see. And Stephen Banks also plays guitar. And in the 80s, we went out and did a show called Stephen Banks and the Original Artists featuring Penn. And we it was just the two of us, and we had two backup singers. It wasn't just, it was four of us, two backup singers. And during that time, I said, as I would say to anybody who would listen, and no one did, why do they always do in bands drummers behind a trap set? Why do they have a drummer playing a trap set, whereas it would be so much better, stronger, visually better in every way to have the drums played by individual people like they do in a marching band?
Sure, sure.
So I wanted to have, for our band, which is only 4 people, I wanted to have 4 drummers. I wanted to have a bass drummer. I wanted to have a marching snare, marching bass drum. I wanted to have a person playing timbales, and I wanted one person just doing cymbals, right?
Nice.
And I thought, boy, that'll be great. And you get a little more complicated on the stuff. It'd be very hard to keep it tight. Very hard to keep it tight. But, so that's why we threw it out. 1, we didn't have the money. 2, we were not musically knowledgeable enough. 3, Stephen thought it was a stupid idea. And 4, the people we had working with us were not drummers. So there was no reason to do it.
What
But
year
I-
was this again?
Was that?
What year was this again?
I don't know, 80, 83?
Wireless in-ear monitors.
Yeah,
That's why you didn't do it.
yeah. So I thought if you had good drummers, this would be amazing and visually beautiful.
Right.
Visually beautiful. So I go to see David Byrne at the Smith Center.
That's right. Lucky you.
American Utopia. And I've got to say, and I realized this backstage talking to David, I realized that I have been seeing David Byrne live for almost 41 years.
Wow.
Almost 41 years. I saw Talking Heads in 1977.
Stop Making Sense tour? No, before that. Before Stop Making Sense.
That's the first album.
Right.
That's Psycho Killer.
Yeah.
That's before Psycho Killer was up on the charts, such as it was, at a club called the Hot Club in Philadelphia. Now, David Byrne and I were backstage saying, what was the name of that club? And David says, The Main Point. We played The Main Point. I said, no, the Main Point was out in Bryn Mawr. This was right in Center City, Philadelphia, right there on Pine Street or something. What was that club? He said, I don't remember. So you remember the club? Because I saw you there, the Ramones there, the Runaways. I saw you there right after Jerry joined the band. Because I didn't know Jerry was in the band. Then Jerry left from Jonathan Richman and the Modern Lovers. Jerry Harrison went over to Talking Heads, and I went to see them. And I said, it was a fabulous show. We couldn't remember the name of the club. So then the long-suffering Glenn Ally, who has paid to have complete access to the Philadelphia Inquirer, went through their morgue online and found the ad for Talking Heads at the Hot Club, which is the name of it, in Philadelphia. Now, that's pretty great.
That's pretty great.
That he found the ad
Nice
for the
job.
show I went to. Except it's better than that, because the ad, the whole newspaper page,
Right.
the ad was the second part of a review of the Asparagus Valley Cultural Society, which included, which is great, Penn juggles and does a little magic while babbling incessantly. At which time,
That's the best review have you ever.
completely accurate, completely accurate. And there was David Byrne on the Talking Heads on the same page as
Same page as you guys.
Same page on the second part of it.
Fantastic.
And then up in the corner at the main point, coming up that week was also Proctor and Bergman from Firesign Theater.
Oh, so Cork Proctor?
What's that? Proctor and Bergman. Phil Proctor. Of
Phil
Firesign.
Proctor. Sorry.
Proctor and Bergman. And then Hot Tuna was playing. And David Sanchez in his last gig before joining the Springsteen band.
That was a big week.
All on that one page, all happening in
I wonder what was on the
Philadelphia
first page of that newspaper.
On the first page of the entertainment section was the first part of the Asparagus Valley review, our review. But that was it in November of '77. I was going to see
At the Hot Club in
David
Philadelphia.
Byrne at the Hot Club in Philadelphia.
That's
And
fantastic.
since then, I've seen David Byrne many times. Many, no, 5 or 6.
Right.
And one time on the Stop Making Sense tour, I went to the Stop Making Sense tour without knowing anything about it. I went to a stadium show in Texas, and I went alone.
Right. I've only seen the film of it, and it was amazing.
Yeah. Well, live, if you didn't know it was going to start with a naked stage and then build the band, it was mind-blowing. And I've told this story many times, but I'm going to tell it again. I was alone, and I don't think I've ever gone to a stadium concert alone before. Have you ever gone to a stadium concert?
Yes.
Yes, you have. Have you?
No.
No. Who have you gone to see alone?
Paul McCartney, My Brave Face tour. Living Color.
It's a different experience.
Yeah.
Having no one to talk to and sitting there in your own little bubble.
Right.
I think it's probably.
Blondie recently.
Oh, really? It's the right way to go to a show. I think it's right. I mean, you'll offend the people that want to go with you. I could never do that. You know, my wife would get mad
Sure,
at
of
me,
course.
and everybody would be mad at me. But it is the right way to go to a show. I mean, if I had my choice, I would go see Dylan and all those people totally alone.
Yeah.
So I'm walking in. It's a stadium. It's a hockey rink. So it's a big crowd of people walking in. And the two people ahead of me in line are two rock nerds. And the one says to the other, I would give anything to know who the residents are. Okay? I overhear that conversation. Now,
Ding, ding. You're going to be rich.
for those of you who don't know, the residents are an avant-garde musical ensemble out of San Francisco that are anonymous.
Yes.
Nobody knows who they are. I also toured Europe with them in '81, and I know who they are, and they're all good friends of mine. So as I walked behind him, in a very loud and clear voice, I stated the names of all the members of the residents, loudly and clearly as we walked. And the guy turned around, looked me directly in the eyes, I said the last name, then went back to talking to his friend. I just wanted to be part of saying that you can answer dreams and the person can never know it. He needed to give nothing except his attention.
You were a secret genie,
I was a secret genie.
and you granted his wish, and he had no clue. He just said, will you quit shouting behind me?
You know, and David Byrne is somebody who you forget how good he is. You
Stop
never
Making Sense made a huge difference in my life.
You never forget for an instant how good Bob Dylan is. You know, but David Byrne, his show is right up there, and the new record, the brand new record out, American Utopia, is as good as anything he's done. Because anything I've heard by David Byrne, it's fabulous. So this show, okay, he has. It is, I think, the most beautiful musical show I've ever seen. Which is, I believe, I like this more than Stop Making Sense.
Yeah, I after your reading your review of it yesterday, I went online to try to find if I could go see it somewhere.
You've got to go see it. They are thin chains coming down from the what's it called? Ready? What is the grid? Right?
The truss?
The truss. There's a truss of lights, and it starts out on the ground with David Byrne sitting at a desk with a human skull. And then while he sings the first song about parts of the brain, the truss lifts up, and the chains in this glorious silver just fill up the whole stage. And those chains in this kind of sensual beaded curtain way are all around the stage. And David's alone on stage. He did one, I guess it's a juggling trick, an acrobatic trick that I absolutely loved and wondered why I hadn't seen it more. It was very, very powerful. He had a chair and a desk, and he sang a little bit at the desk. Then someone came out and moved the desk, and the chair stayed there. Now, the chair is upstage center, right? And then David Byrne sings the song and moves with the skull and everything else, and sings the whole song, and then walks straight backwards and sits down.
Right.
Which is a really good trick, right? It looks like the whole audience is going like, whoa.
Uh-oh. He's going to fall. He's out.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
made it.
But there was someone there with the chair to adjust it, which I thought hurt it a lot. But all you need is a mark on the stage and then walk back and trust
Yeah.
that no one's. But it looked
A little
great.
practice, you'd nail it.
And then out from the beads in different places come kind of like Stop Making Sense, kind of one by one, but not as slow a process, come the band. And the band, get this, the band, including David Byrne, is 12 people. 12 people. 2 of them are just backup singers. Just backup singers. And there's mics to be seen. They've all got, what do they call them? Countrymen.
Yeah, sure.
Countryman mics. They've all got those. But other than that, there's not a microphone to be seen, right? And the keyboard player, who is a monster, has the keyboard, not a keytar, but like laid in front of him on a tray, like in a marching setup. We can play this keyboard, and he's a monster. And then there's two singers, David Byrne, keyboard, bass, and guitar. That is the entire ensemble there, right?
So that's
6. 6 people. And the wireless guitar and bass and keyboard, you can't see any transmitters on them or anything. It's just totally free to do this. And then the other 6 people are drummers. All 6 drummers. And so tight. But not only tight, but also loose. I mean, groove players. So I was with Jonesy, and it was mind-blowing because they would start right together, just for no reason, just boom. And we were very perplexed by that. So we went backstage, and we also were very perplexed because it was also fluid, so it wasn't a click track.
Right.
You know, it had this really nice, it breathed real well. And so we went backstage, we met David Byrne, but also we took one of the drummers aside and just kind of went
Punch him in the mouth, hold him down.
better than that.
Pull his hair, Jones.
I just kind of tricked him. I just said, so who triggers the click to start the songs?
like coming from a place of knowledge.
Yes, exactly.
You're so clever.
Yeah, exactly.
You fall for it?
He couldn't. He fell for it completely.
Idiot.
He said, we just get the 4 in the clicks, and then the click track comes out. It's triggered by one of the guys on stage whose mic does not go into the house. We can just hear him.
Okay.
So triggers, click, they come right in. And then the entire band of 6, there's nothing on the stage, nothing. The entire band moves every second of the whole show. They do formation marching, they do freestyle dancing, they leave and come back with different instruments. I mean, the drummers, I think each one of them changes instruments like every song.
Wow.
And they just, it was such a great show. And they did Once in a Lifetime. Mm-hmm. And David Byrne seems to be the best person possible at falling backwards and losing his balance.
Yeah.
And I was showing how good he was at it, and I almost fell down and lost my balance. Mm-hmm. He looks like he has no control. You never read in the paper, David Byrne falls down.
Fell off the back of the stage today. Yeah.
He runs backwards. And they do all this great lighting stuff, and they do, neither of the singers look at all like dancers, not traditional dancers, and doing all this modern dance stuff. And they've got little sequences that they do, and they repeat them and do them together, and the other parts of the band pick them up, and the drummers do things. But nothing is, when I say the word marching band, the phrase marching band, I'm giving you the wrong idea.
Right.
Because they don't steal anything from marching bands. The few times they do pinwheels or stuff like that, they naturally fall into it. And a lot of it is just 12 people on stage playing music and loving it and moving in their own little world. And they'll walk in front of David Byrne while he's singing, You know, they'll dance in front of them. They do stuff. And the guitar player, this woman who used to be with Cirque du Soleil, is a monster. She's a monster. And then David Byrne goes through the beaded curtain and comes on with the guitar 3 times. And that ensemble, bass, drums, keyboards, 6 drummers, and David, so another guitar, burning down the house, absolutely full, live, perfect sound. Once in a lifetime perfect sound. And David Byrne sings. You never see him get a drink of water. Okay, never.
Right.
You know, I guess he goes out of the beaded curtain, comes back in. There's nothing that sullies this pure. They're all wearing gray matching suits, but they wear them slightly differently. Some of them open, some of them closed. But David's buttoned the whole time. But the guitar player has her shirt open the whole time, their coat open the whole time. And it is, I think, the best presentation of music I've ever seen.
That's great.
And I also believe the drums were loud enough that although they clearly were amplified, you really felt like you were hearing a lot of acoustic sound. I guess what I'm also saying is they're well amplified.
Right.
And I'm reading David Byrne's book, How Music Works, and he talks a lot about this. But it really is perfectly a funk groove with a art school sensibility on top of it. Now, George Clinton had that, and Sun Ra certainly had that, and David Byrne talks about them being huge influences on him. But they didn't have the... it's like I used to go with my model girlfriend in New York to these modern dance shows that were just suck, you know? Really hard to sit through. But there'd be great, great stuff in them.
Right.
But the overall show was hard to sit through. And you'd see fabulous things. You'd go out afterwards, have a slice of pie, talk about it. There was great stuff in there. But you didn't actually feel like you were being entertained. You just thought you were being, there was for your edification.
They were showing you some things.
Yeah, yeah. And he has taken, you know, downtown New York choreographers of modern dance. Everybody's barefoot in the band. And had them work on choreography with these people. So the choreography is really smart and modern, and all of a sudden, wicked entertaining.
Right.
And there's all this artsy stuff, and the funk just stays there constantly. The bass player is a monster. So your rhythm section, which is really all the band is a rhythm section, you know. I mean, that's not fair, I guess, to the keyboard player, but rhythm is really, really important. And David Byrne sings really well. His intonation is well. There's no auto-tune. He doesn't do much vibrato. Just hits the notes. He does that great thing, which I always loved about David Byrne, where unlike the Rolling Stones or the Beatles or even Bob Dylan, David Byrne is not trying to sing like the people who pioneered this music.
You know, one of the things from when I first saw Stop Making Sense, one of the things that most impressed me was I felt that David Byrne's show would have been the same if I were there or if no one were there. I felt like this is how he does his show. He is not aware that I am watching.
Yeah.
He just completely open in his attitude, in his performance. It would be the same in his living room as it was here today.
His book talks about that a lot.
Okay, cool.
Talks about learning to be a performer. And learning to be a performer and not be in himself. But
Right.
he's an incredible introvert. And also, I think part of what makes David Byrne great is he's also really good looking.
Yeah.
And really classically handsome. And that helps for the nerd thing. You know, he can play it quirky and it's more a choice, you know. It seems really honest and real. It doesn't seem like he's playing to type. It's almost like he's playing against type.
Right.
So it makes it more real. And he talks a lot in his book about authenticity.
Right.
And how rehearsal does not take away authenticity.
Yeah.
And there's a sense, and he mentions this with Bob Dylan, that the fact that there's no choreography in that makes one think that his show is more authentic. And yet David Byrne, which is rehearsed within an inch of its life,
Right.
has, to me...
Well, that's what I was going to say about Sun Ra. Would Sun Ra have rehearsed a show like that and put in choreography and...
Yeah, Sun Ra did do that.
Okay.
And David Byrne says in his book, which I always thought was really funny, Sun Ra would play crazy space music.
Yeah.
I mean, just banging his hand against the keyboard. No skill that you could discern whatsoever. And then the whole band would go into Fletcher Henderson charts perfectly and really fast. And David Byrne puts it a way that I've always put it too. I guess it's obvious, but boy, it's the perfect way to see it. He says he'd play space music, and then every once in a while, just to remind you that they knew what they were doing, they would play really hard stuff perfectly together. And with Sun Ra, it was very crazy, because you'd see these guys with tinfoil on their head and antennas strapped to them going, ah, 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 1, 2, 3, boom, and then perfect charts that nobody could play. Just beautifully done. And then out of that into space music. And David Byrne just learned so much from all of this.
Okay.
And he also makes this point in the book, which he makes really sneaky, because David Byrne and Paul Simon were both attacked for cultural appropriation, right? And David Byrne does not address that head on. He's wise not to. It's very clear that David Byrne simply wants to know about different kinds of music.
Right.
And I don't know how that can be a bad thing, but somehow to some people it may be, okay? But he does this great thing where he's talking about picking up a kind of music from South Africa that he really likes, this beat. And as he researches it and learns about it, he finds out that it's from Cuba, and that it was taken from Cuba, brought over to Africa, and incorporated into their music. So it becomes the Steven Pinker, is it, or the Harari argument that when you're talking about people who have a right to a certain kind of land and a certain kind of culture, you have to say when.
Right.
When?
Of course.
When?
How
Because-
far back do we go?
How far back do we go? Because it's someone else before that. It's someone else. I mean, give Ireland back to the Irish. It's someone else before that.
Yeah.
It's someone else before that. And the same thing with the music. So we're taking the,
Right.
we're taking the South American music, but how far back are we going?
Right.
And where they, because the fact is that there's one human race.
Once I got here, then we stopped going back farther. That's where we start.
Exactly.
We start when I do it.
But anyway, one of the greatest shows I have
yeah,
ever seen.
I'm
And I
envious.
went back and talked to David Byrne after and said, well, I hope I'll be seeing you for another 40 years. Hope I'll just go seeing you again and again and again. And he's somebody that I go see, when I go see music, there's also, first of all, we've talked about this before, not the slightest bit of nostalgia. I mean, even though he did Once in a Lifetime, Burning Down the House, and a couple of other, what you would call hits, I suppose. There was no sense of, I remember where I was in the 80s.
Right.
It was just there and real and live. And the second encore, the first encore he did was from his Imelda Marcos disco opera, which was fabulous. It was him singing every word that he sang was said by Marcos, and in a disco. So he did that thing, and then did the only political things he did, and boy, were they powerful political. I mean, if you want to talk about what you can do to get your point of view across, less is more can be a lot. He said, Marcos were dictators in the Philippines, and they were completely overthrown in a nationwide 4-day, completely peaceful protest. And then he paused and said, so things can turn around.
Nice.
That's all he said. Peaceful protest, 4 days, dictatorship overthrown, things can turn around. No snide remarks about little hands or and that just made the whole audience, they didn't even applaud for this. They went about, boo.
Right.
4-day peaceful protest that stopped a dictatorship. That's all. And in the in the Pinker, is it the Pinker book? One of the books I've been reading lately. No, it's in Enlightenment, which is the Pinker book. Yeah, Enlightenment now. He points out, boy, this is important. This is such an important thing. I don't know why this isn't taught to everybody all the time. There's this sense, and I've seen it with a lot of my friends, that, and Obama, when he accepted his Nobel Peace Prize, gave this tone too. Martin Luther King, Gandhi, Okay? Peaceful protests that accomplished huge amounts. That is taught to us kind of like, wow, there's this anomaly, and these guys who were I don't want to be unfair to Obama, but there was a sense in his speech that I got. Doesn't mean he meant it, but what I got of almost naivete, like Martin Luther King tried to do everything peacefully, and we know that sometimes that doesn't work, right? That was kind of the tone.
Yeah.
Well, Pinker points out that of the major revolution and cultural changes, peaceful ones are much more successful than the armed ones. Armed resurrections are successful about 1/3 of the time, and totally peaceful are successful about 2/3 of the time.
There you go.
They're twice as successful to do a totally peaceful process. So Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr.
So if you do both at the same time,
So, if you really want to do change, which is, for me, who read the Pinker book, when David Byrne said that on stage, it was like, it just took the wind out of me, All we need is totally peaceful protest and we're done. That's all you need. It's all you need to fix things. And then the very end is, I'm gonna mess up the name of this, but for the finish, all 12 came out with drums. The guitar player, bass player, keyboard player, and David Byrne all came out with drums. And they did this song from 2015 called Hell You Tombout? Hell You Tombo? It is a nonsense word coming out of hell you talking about. What the hell you talking about? You know the song?
and he did this just for the people from Helsinki.
Yes, Helsinki.
Hell you Tombout.
Hell you Tombout?
Tombout. Talmbout.
Yeah. Which was written, he said it was written by, but the chorus is Hell You Talk About, Hell You Tombout. And they this list, to my ear, and I don't know every name they said, but I recognized 2/3 of the name, and I believe they were all police shootings. There might have been also other shootings. Oh, there were, because it was Trayvon Martin.
Right. The song lists names of various African American people who've died in encounters with law enforcement and or racial violence.
Yeah. But they had updated it. And David Byrne also said in a very political, we're doing this, and with permission, we have updated it, and it's sad that we can. And then they did it all with drums. And really, really powerful. And a nice long show, and you just got completely immersed in it. And people working hard. People working really, really hard to do a really, really good show. Isn't that what we should be doing?
That's what we should be doing.
Yeah, it was a show that inspired you to work harder. You went, boy, I want to practice more.
Right.
Which is what a show should do, as opposed to when you go to a really shitty show, you go, boy, do I work too hard.
Yeah. Why am I in showbiz?
Why am I doing it? Because there's just nothing to this. This is a way I would be able to feel more fulfilled cleaning a Slurpee machine than being, when I worked as a dishwasher, I felt like I was accomplishing something.
That's right.
And you go to a really shitty show, you think, I should go back to doing something where I accomplish something.
Yeah, where I matter. I can clean food off of plates for sick people.
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah, but David Byrne makes it look like, oh, this is important too. This is good.
Nice.
This is also something wonderful. And they almost all the light was white light, except for one thing. They bathed in rich blue, just out for no reason, just boom, hit you. And then when he did Burning Down the House, just on the chorus of Burning Down the House, the whole stage went bright red with flames.
Oh, beautiful.
And just
Sounds
for
great.
that. And I also couldn't believe how good they sound. No auto-tune, no over-tracking, no nothing. And that wonderful little click counting them off in the ear, and a guy conducting without being seen.
So how do you think he got the idea out of you? How do you think he found out that was your plan? You think you think Banks talked, or what do you think happened?
I think Banks probably talked.
Just blabbed.
Banks probably. And you're right.
Banks the mime.
In-ear monitor is what makes that possible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because without in-ear
So
monitors,
you guys could not have done it back then easily, at least.
I believe it's an idea that many, many people could get. And he says in the book, and he also said personally, I said, boy, the idea of 6 drummers all playing separate stuff is a great idea. And he said, yes, I just was waiting till I could afford it. Because, you're bringing 6 people on the road with you where anybody in their right mind would tell you, you can have one person do this, or maybe 2. And you can't. What they get out of that is much, because they were all fabulous drummers.
Well, and they're dancing. You're adding the show. It's not just the music.
It's just fabulous. And, I mean, so tight, and tight and complex, and just David Byrne, a great show. He's on the road through October. I believe he has like 2 days off in that entire amount of time. He's going all over the country. So see David Byrne, and such a wonderful, sweet, smart guy. Backstage, we hung out for a very.
I'm pretty sure the rest of us are not going to get to go backstage and hang with him, but worth a shot.
Very long time we talked about it, and how great his show was. And he was just humble and good. Also, the great thing about a show like that, and I mean, this is really silly, but I kept saying to myself, if I just worked some running in place and some push-ups into our show, I wouldn't have to exercise every day. Because
that's great. Yes.
These people do not have to exercise.
Yeah.
I mean, they are running in place. They're doing aerobic. They're doing strength. They're doing everything the whole time.
Sure.
And also, they'd only been on the road now 2 or 3 weeks, so nobody was even slightly jaded to the road. They were all excited and happy, and I talked to like, I guess 5 or 6 of them.
You put an American Ninja Warrior setup as part of your show.
Exactly.
And you'd have to do it every day. That'd be great.
Yeah. It'd be a wonderful thing.
I'm going to swing on Teller's legs.
Yeah. Maybe you've heard me talk about the amazing Sleep Number 360 smart beds. You have.
I've heard you talk about this pretty often.
They are so smart, they respond to your every movement and automatically adjust to you. The great news is Sleep Number is introducing even more of these innovative beds, and their latest smart beds are even more comfortably priced. I've been staying in my Sleep Number pretty soft. I've been staying around 65.
Yeah.
And Emily's still softer. I think she's done around 50.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is you can have the Sleep Number bed adjust both sides of the bed to different firmness of the mattress.
Mm-hmm.
You can change it time to time. You can also change it place to place. When I go on the road, I'm very, very happy to come back to my very comfortable bed. So many couples disagree on mattress firmness. Sleep Number beds let you choose your ideal firmness on each side. So it's both right. So it's just right for both of you.
Mm-hmm.
They have the wrong words down here. You can actually feel how it contours to your neck, shoulders, back. I want to go to sleep now. Back and hip, relieving pressure points and for more proper spinal alignment. And it also has the Sleep IQ technology.
It's got an adjustment for snoring.
It does.
Does it just wake you up? Is that what that does?
No, it makes it so you're sitting, you don't snore. I don't know why.
We need this. My wife needs this.
It stops Western characters from shooting you.
Okay.
Just for snoring too loud.
I see. There you go. Come in now to see the latest Sleep Number 360 smart bed with introductory savings up to $300 plus special financing. Just ask the Sleep Number store for details. There are more than 550 Sleep Number stores. Visit sleepnumber.com/Penn to find the store nearest you. Sleepy Q. So I also went. I want to be very careful how I talk about this.
Okay.
Maybe I should wait till the next show. Maybe this is too long a thing to get into right now. I want to talk
on the chat.
Yeah,
I'm going to go back in time here. Melvin Gibstein is checking out our episode 118 of Penn Radio.
Uh-oh.
To fact check us.
Yeah.
Who is?
Melvin Gibstein. Is that his screen name on the chat?
Okay. Yeah.
Which means that he's got to be listening to us on the air now in one ear.
Yeah.
And us from back
11 years ago in the other.
In
right.
2006.
And he's called Melvin Gibstein because I said that's what Mel Gibson's name should be, right?
Right.
Because he's such a Three Stooges fan. And I wanted, when I met Mel Gibson, I wanted so much to say, the Three Stooges are Jewish, right? I just wanted to say that. But did he find out that we do?
No, he's listening now. So I think we should help out by maybe you could do your favorite ballet and Godot could sing Annie at the same time. And
make it hard for him to concentrate.
Yeah, I'll take Jabberwocky. And
one afternoon at Jake's Saloon, the
gamblers in the Slyly Toads.
Some group of men. I can't even do it. Oh, by the way, next week we will have Johnny Thompson on. Do you know that Johnny Thompson's 2-volume Magic book. The magic book that is his whole life's work.
Yeah.
Which is expensive, right? It's like
It's real, 250, I think.
$250.
Maybe more.
I think it's more. $250 or more. That entire run sold out in 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, in Magic, that's unbelievable. And the book is gorgeous and beautiful. And so I was going to say you should go out and buy it, but you shouldn't because you can't.
Too late.
But I should also say, this is really important, that Gambler's Ballad, The Legend of Johnny Thompson,
I managed to watch it this week. What a great
is on Showtime
great
Extreme.
job you guys have done with this. It's
Showtime
beautiful.
Extreme. It's playing like 5:30 in the morning because it has a weird length.
Right.
And it's also not, it's not the biggest title Showtime has. It's a small little movie, but David Copperfield's in it. Arsenio Hall.
Pendulette's in it. Pendulette's in it.
I'm in it a lot. But that's my movie.
Well, that's really beautiful. Really great.
Emery directed it. My wife, Emily Gillette, produced it. And we put it together. And you didn't watch it when we played it here?
I did not watch it when we played.
And you liked it, right?
I loved it.
How would you describe the movie to people?
A love letter from Penn Jillette to Johnny Thompson is how that seems like the most appropriate.
I guess
you don't think so?
I guess that's all it is. Yeah. But it shows Johnny's life in Magic.
It really is fun. It's great to see the old footage of him doing the act and Pam, and they're just so wonderful.
Yeah. But you can see that. It's called The Gambler's Ballad, The Legend of Johnny Thompson. Gambler's Ballad, The Legend.
You see, my movie of me and Johnny Thompson is basically us just riding around Catalina Island on a tandem bicycle.
Did you do that?
Yeah.
How great is that?
I first met Johnny in '82 doing shows in Valley Forge, Pennsylvania with him. And since then, traveled with him on cruise ships and stuff in the early '80s. And so Pam and I would ride a tandem bike, and Johnny would ride along with us, and we'd ride all over Catalina every week, twice a week.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, it was a blast.
That's great. Yeah. Johnny likes the movie a lot. It will be on demand
Soon.
very soon. How'd you watch it? You time shifted it?
No, I got a code from Glenn.
Oh, I see.
And managed to track it down.
Yeah. Well, it's a little hard to see now, but you can do a search. I'm sure that people on the webpage will find an easy way to spread that around so that you can see it. But it's a good. And I'll also ask you, we got it on Rotten Tomatoes. It's on Rotten Tomatoes.
Oh,
You
I
go to
didn't know
Rotten
that.
Tomatoes and you search for Gambler's Ballad. They did us
You
a
can
favor.
review it, sure.
And please say something nice, something
Absolutely.
kind.
I had no
idea. It'll make a big difference to us. And it's a really nice.
And Johnny's on next week.
Johnny's on next week. We're going to talk to Johnny next week.
Yeah, I'm not here next week, but Matt's back. So
So we'll talk to Johnny about Magic and so on. I just started working on. You'll be very happy about this. I get an idea for a version of the Chinese sticks.
Oh, nice.
There's all these tricks.
Yeah, sure. I was just watching one yesterday with Gaetan Bloom.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And I'm going to be doing. I got a nice set. I actually had an emergency. I called up Nate in our office and said, "I got this idea for Chinese sticks. I want a set." And so Johnny got on the phone, and we talked to Lupe Nielsen, who had a set. And then, with Ubers and delivery and stuff like that, I got a good set from Lupe Nielsen.
In the middle of the night.
Great set of Chinese sticks within 2 hours of when I asked for them.
Nice.
Pretty good.
That's pretty good.
Pretty good. It's not really drone delivery, but then again, they're heavier. And I'm working on it. It's the correlation sticks when I get done with it.
The correlation sticks?
Correlation sticks. Correlation is not causation.
Yeah, okay.
That's my hook
good.
on
That's
this.
a good one.
Yeah. So I'll be
I was
doing.
thinking to do it with the knobs off of juggling clubs. I thought that would look good.
That would look good. Really, really good. But I'm playing around with that. So Johnny be working with me on that. Try to get
That's the end of the juggling club version.
What's that?
So, that's the end of my juggling club version. We really can't be doing it at the same time.
Yes, you can. You can do it.
All right.
Well, you're not going to get to it anyway.
No, I got too much other stuff
Yeah,
to
you
do.
have much other stuff to do. Yeah. You got any shows coming up?
I do. I am in Hermosa Beach at the Comedy and Magic Club May 1st through 5th. 8 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
Come on by.
And that's
Big
where
show.
they do the overspill, and you can do 2 shows.
Yeah, on Friday and Saturday night. Sometimes we do 2 shows.
Right
and they
after.
start 15 minutes apart.
Oh, that's
so you
so good.
finish on stage and you run to the other stage and start a show right away.
Oh, that's fabulous.
It's great. I've actually been late running to the second stage. Comics on there going, hey, where were you? I introduced you 2 minutes ago. Come on.
Well, yeah, because if anybody goes long, it's
Yeah, if something happens, if somebody heckles or you drop a juggling club, God forbid. But yeah, it's a great club.
Hermosa
Great
Beach.
food, great club,
And
My
people-
favorite- and big names. Arsenio Hall will open for me. You know what I mean? I can't. I don't know who's going to be there that week, but it's always 3 or 4 big name people coming in.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great. Hermosa Beach
Hermosa Beach,
coming up. Do you have the
Beautiful.
dates again?
May 1st through 5th.
And next week we have Johnny Thompson. I got
Yeah,
I got a
I'm
lot
out of
to
town. I
talk
have a
about.
secret mission.
That's for
next
the
week.
live show, right?
What's that?
That's for the live show, right?
What is Johnny Thompson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
next Sunday.
Yeah, next Sunday for the live show. And that was Penn Sunday School.
All the way over there.
Okay.
Reddy's got to jump up because he's sitting over here with us.
That was Penn Sunday School.
That was Penn,
There it is.
That was Penn Sunday School.
Cha cha cha.
And to our listening ears,
You become naked.
sang and round us rang the music of the sea.
Yeah, next week, Johnny Thompson. That's next Sunday. We have a show coming up Wednesday, which we're going to do right now. You don't know it. Where I'll talk about the Flick, and James Comey. I actually have an angle on the James Comey thing, even though it's been so huge. That's all the news is James Comey. I get a little bit of a wrinkle on it.
Nice.
Sunday School. And you know I love you.
Beware the Jabberwock, my son. The jaws that bite. The claws that catch.
I'm ready to go right away.
We got to
Stand
write
by
a
for
new
episode
intro.
2.
Same one. We didn't get to anything, did we? Oh, you got to Harry Anderson and David Byrne.
Yeah.
The jump bird and Shun, the frumiest Bandersnatch.
So I want James Comey. We're still going to do, and Black
Superhero
Lightning.
Black Lightning.
Yep.
And we'll do the weight thing. So we're good.
Okay.
All set.
This is Penn Sunday School, and to our listening ears, all nature sings and round us rings the music of the seas.
Brothers and sisters, welcome to Penn Sunday School, starring Penn Jillette. My name is Mike Liddell, and once again, Reddy Rich is sitting in Matt's chair. Today, we're broadcasting from the Show Creator Studios in Las Vegas. On this week's show, Penn is glad James Comey is tall. We are going to talk about the superhero show Black Lightning. Black Lightning? Lighting? 667 people have lost 31,668 pounds on our stupid, super cool magic diet. Here he is, preaching love, Mr. Penn Jillette.
They were preaching love. I just got a nice message, a text message from Kevin Smith that just came in just now.
Oh, yeah.
He's still doing great on his diet, still losing weight, still getting healthier, still feeling
Doing
better.
the Ray Crow nice deal.
He's on that diet. He read Presto, my book, and the
Called
pounds
you
are-
up and
pounds are falling off him. Yeah, falling off him. He actually listened to the audio version. He told me.
oh, nice.
Boy, he listened fast, and it's working.
He's a
for
traveling comic, right? He drives a lot, so he's
Yeah.
on the road listening to stuff all the time.
Yeah, so it's work. Kevin Smith is doing great. So James Comey, I'm so happy. He's 6'8". Mm-hmm. He's 6'8". He's at least an inch taller than I am. I got to tell you, when people are in the news that are over my height and aren't basketball people, it makes me
That's
very
it
happy.
for you. That's
Now, I don't want to talk much about James Comey, but I love the fact that he's tall because there was this moment, this very odd kind of moment in my life that was odd enough at the moment, but in retrospect becomes much odder. On Celebrity Apprentice, I did the Today Show. Okay?
Which you've
So-
never seen.
You've never watched it, but you've been on it.
Right. Yeah.
How fun is that?
Yeah, well, who could watch the Today Show? It's on for hours, isn't it? I mean, I did see the monitor backstage when I was on. I've been on the Today Show probably 15 times. But I was on with Celebrity Apprentice, and it was a bunch of the cast, and it was Donald Trump, of course, and me. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, which I can't remember, and I tried to get Glenn to remember why, we were entering from a different side than the rest of the cast. It's possible that Trump and I were entering maybe with Trace, but I don't remember Trace being there.
Right.
I remember in a very small space, me and Donald Trump. And I mean, close together, like
Right.
probably
Little wing off stage, just kind of jammed in there
just a little curtained off place where we're going to stand, the two of us together,
until they announce you.
yeah, for 3 minutes, 4 minutes, 5, but during the commercials, then the introduction, right? Whatever that is, 3 minutes.
You're going to breathe the same air for 3
Yeah.
minutes.
And that is always awkward.
Yes.
You know, when you're doing an entrance like that. I have been in small spaces hidden with Teller a lot, but when you're with somebody that you're not used to, it's very odd to have your face
Right.
within
3
a
inch-
foot. Within a foot, probably not 3 inches, but within a foot of someone else's face. And Donald Trump claims to be 6'3".
Right.
He's probably 6'1.5".
Okay.
I claim to be 6'7". I'm probably 6'6.5". Probably getting shorter as I get older. But that is a reasonable distance in height. It's a reasonable distance. So we're standing back there, and top of his head is at my nose. So I am looking just at his hair, and we are really close together. And Donald Trump says to me, after a long pause, just the two of us standing there with the commercials going on and stuff, after a really long pause, he goes, with anger, "Yeah, you're taller than me. You're taller than me. You're taller than me." 3 or 4 times he just says that. I pause and pause and pause and then say, "And I have a lot of money too." Ladies and gentlemen, from Celebrity. But I know, and it was just like the funniest thing I could think of. Probably it's that moment that I did not win.
Yeah, that was it. Until
Celebrity
then,
prize.
he was like, Penn's going to get this. I'm sure I'm going to give this to Penn. That fucking asshole.
Yeah. It was a really funny thing to say because it was a non sequitur that isn't a non sequitur.
Right.
Which
He's
is
clearly annoyed that you have something on him, and that you would have 2 things on him is just.
yeah.
Oh.
Also, it says, it's my way of saying you're not that rich. It says a lot of stuff. You know,
A lot of stuff that he would be unhappy
a
about.
lot of stuff he's unhappy about just by saying happily,
Right.
and I have a lot of money too. Probably, certainly not more money than him, but he has so much less money than he claims. That's still
Could be.
Yeah. We walk on.
We're not going to wake up one day and find out that Penn Jillette was lying about the money, and you're not going to be thrown out of your house.
Right. Exactly. I haven't gone bankrupt.
Right.
The number of times I've gone bankrupt is 0. I have more money than my father left me,
Right.
even corrected in dollars. We're not sure that's true of Trump, although now it is probably with all the graft and corruption. But so that was that moment. So when I read, I don't know when it was, but I never met James Comey, so I didn't know it until I read it, and I read it much after he was in the news that he was 6'8". I went, oh man, when he walked into that office with Donald Trump at 6'8", that's where it all starts. It's
Right.
all monkey cock size. That's all. That's all that's going on, right? There's nothing else going on, as Donald Trump stands backstage 5 inches from me when I'm towering over him and looking at the size of my hands, his hatred for me has not got anything to do with our art or politics, So when James Comey walked into the office and Trump,
Towered over.
in whatever way he did, demanded loyalty, what you really had was you had James Comey walking in with his big silver back and Donald Trump going, wait a minute, I'm president. I get to be taller than you automatically. And he doesn't. So I enjoy very, very much how tall James Comey is.
You think you just probably asked him to hunch over? Could you hunch over when we're standing next to each other?
And you
I
also,
can't, Mr. President. I can't do that.
you also know that James Comey stood up really tall. You know, I mean, the thing you have to remember is James Comey has a lot of the same kinds of problems that Donald Trump has.
Sure.
And says it honestly. Talks about his ego and so on, having trouble with him, you know. Because he fired James Comey, you know. I mean, James Comey's mad about that.
Yeah.
But I like the fact. But as I watch this from my little place, you know, as I read the newspapers and stuff, every time they say James Comey 6'8", a huge grin comes across my face. I want to see them. I hope when they had their meeting, I hope they were both standing, which they had to be at some point, and I hope they were close together. That's all I want.
If only they were on the Today Show together.
In that little class. I don't know why we were there, you know. By the way, Trace Atkins is also way
Very tall,
taller
yeah.
than Donald Trump. He had two people taller than him on.
You pronouncing that correctly?
I am not. Trace Atkins. Yeah. Reading about that. Well, we'll talk to, for one of the Bang shows, I'm going to talk to Corey Stamper. I want to talk to her about Penn.
Pin.
You know, because I finally said, I think I said this before, I finally said to Trace that he had to pronounce my name right once. Because he called me Penn
Right.
every single time, Penn. And I said, it's actually Penn. It's a different word than Penn. It's Penn. And he said, well, Trace is 2 syllables, and you never say it right. You say Trace. He said, so if you're saying Trace, I'm saying Penn. And I went, so you want me to say Trace? He said, yeah, Trace. I said, okay, I'll say Trace, and you say Penn. So the final show of Celebrity Apprentice, we each try to say each other's names properly. He does say Penn once, and I do say Trace.
Nice.
So I'm still not doing right, am I?
You're close.
Trace?
close.
How do you say it?
You know I was going to get it better than either one of us.
Trace?
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 That's Trace.
Trace. Trace.
Who I know what doesn't got a P row.
Trace.
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 I'm a couple
we'll
states
ride in a
north.
P row with Trace. What?
I'm a couple states north.
Yeah, okay. Well, it's, you know.
Yeah, well, but you say Penn, right?
Yes.
I never know. You don't say
Penn.
Penn. You don't say Penn.
I say Penn.
Right. But I've had a few friends who say Penn. You know, and I guess that's just the way you say it when you're from one of those places where there might be dragons. I don't know. One of those weird places. So, Annie Baker. Okay, I've taught about Annie Baker before. When I did Scorpion last time, I found out that one of the guys there had been in a band with Annie Baker. Pulitzer Prize winner, Annie Baker.
Yeah.
I saw Hamilton in New York, and I loved it. Not as much as my wife. She's seen it 10 times again since. I liked Hamilton great. It's great. It's hard working. You know, it's like what I was saying about David Byrne. They worked really hard on it. It's really good. And then I went the next, maybe not actually the next night, but it sure felt that way. Might have been the next night. I went to see The Flick, which was downtown. Now, The Flick won a Pulitzer Prize. And Stephen Banks, whose taste is impeccable, and I always agree with everything he says, Stephen Banks told me to go see The Flick by Annie Baker. And it's an incredible show. When you walk in, the stage is movie theater seats, and you are the screen.
Right.
So the fourth wall is the movie screen. And there's a lot of stuff about this that's really powerful for me. It takes place in Worcester, which is, 15 miles from where I grew up. And the accents were perfect, and the accents were my accent. And the slang was my slang. And I worked in a movie theater when I was young.
I did too, yeah.
Yeah. And the entire play takes place while cleaning up the movie theater between shows. So when you go in there, they project directly onto you, the closing credits of a movie with a sound. Then that ends, and the lights come up, and the characters come on, and they sweep and clean. Now, when I saw it in New York, every time they finished a scene and they showed some of the movie, somehow, magically, I don't know what they had. They must have had trapdoors or something. They threw more shit for them to clean up. So every time the lights came up, there was more popcorn for them to sweep, spilled sodas, stuff like that. And I was told by Stephen Banks that it was like the Ramones. which I've mentioned many times. When you first saw the Ramones, when they were, which I'm old enough that I saw the Ramones, and I remembered a time there wasn't no Ramones.
Right.
And you said to yourself, 10 minutes into the show, they cannot
Yeah, no way they're going to
do
keep this
every
up.
song in this tempo, in this key, with no guitar solo. They just can't do that. There will be a change-up. I don't mean for their physical fitness, which, of course, for Johnny Ramone, as has been said many times, anyone can play guitar like Johnny Ramone for 5 minutes. No one can play guitar like Johnny Ramone for an hour. And when I met Johnny Ramone, I was with Debbie Harry. She introduced me to Johnny, and Johnny is like what we called in the circus ballybroad. You know, the ones who do the web, where they take the one arm and they hold
Right.
it and they spin around.
Yeah.
95, 96, 97,
flips,
count
yeah.
100. So they're doing like partial one-arm
One-arm
pull-ups.
pull-ups, yeah, with
And they're
a
doing it
spin.
3 shows a day.
Yeah.
And so you know those women.
Yes.
Their right arm is...
Fiddler crabs.
Fiddler crabs, exactly. Their right arms are enormous.
Yeah.
And their left arms are just a normal human's arms. Johnny Ramone's just like that. He walked up in a T-shirt, and his right arm is stretching the sleeve of the T-shirt, and the left arm is like nothing.
Cigarettes.
Yeah. And so you listen to the Ramones, and you go, and then like 20 minutes in, you're going, oh, I get it. They're going to go this whole time. Well, Stephen had warned me about this. And you see the flick, F-L-I-C-K. You see the flick. And they play 4 minutes of a movie in your face. You know, you can't tell what it is, just
Right.
light. And that stops, and the lights come up. And 2 people come in and start cleaning the theater. Right? And they start talking. And when they talk so much like real people, it's excruciating. Well, then they sweep. And there are pauses in the flick that go minute and a half.
Wow.
Person finishes talking
Right.
before the other person talks. If you've ever had a job cleaning,
Right. Yeah, sure. of course.
dishwasher job,
That's exactly what it is.
closing down. When you're closing down, you'll clean a pot for a really long time, and then say, "Hey, just what movies you seen lately?" Back to cleaning for a really long time. A guy goes, "I don't know, saw Goldfinger." A lot of cleaning. Well, that's the tempo it goes, and for the first 10 minutes, you say, I'm not going to be able to make this. I'm going to crack.
They're going to win.
This will be terrible.
They've got me.
And then you hit 15 minutes and you go, I hope this is 8 hours. I hope this is 10 hours. And the brilliance of Andy Baker is that, Hamilton, you've got a country being formed.
Yeah.
You've got,
3 million words per minute.
you've got music. You've got all that stuff going on. It's very, very moving. I found the flick 100 times more powerful
Right.
than Hamilton. And the big moment is a rash on the guy's back. And there's a number where it's also, and I want to say this with a great deal of respect, without being unkind, but there's 4 people in the cast, but 3 people that you spend most of your time with. And as I'm watching them in New York, I'm thinking to myself, well, these are people like Jennifer Jason Leigh. Jennifer Jason Leigh sometimes plays nerdy outsider characters. But when you see her, she's beautiful.
Right.
Beautiful. I said, boy, these people, they look like regular people, not particularly movie star attractive. I bet when I meet them after the show, they're going to be movie star attractive. Nope. They look like regular people who are just genius actors. The one guy had, and I can't diagnose this, but I believe it's called a hair lip. He'd had some
Right.
sort of surgery with his upper lip.
Okay.
The woman was fine, attractive looking for a person, but did not look like a movie star. All 3 of them had that quality. All 3 of them spoke in my perfect accent, that my nephews
Right.
speak, right? Perfect dialect, dead on, and did this excruciating tempo that then becomes the only tempo it could possibly be. and some of the pauses are amazing, funny, poignant. You know, there's a scene where one of the characters says that his brother, who's getting married, is retarded. And then they clean forever, and the other character says, "You mean like retarded, or retarded?" you know,
Right. Yeah.
and you just go, exactly right, you know. And there's some of the timing on the jokes is, you know, the whole plot is a local movie theater being bought by a chain. It's the whole plot, right?
All right.
Whole plot. And so he's wearing a Boston Red Sox baseball hat for 2/3 of the show. And then it comes up once when they've bought it and he hasn't got the hat on. And there's these great times where he goes, yeah, they won't let me wear my baseball hat. Red Sox hat. We're in Massachusetts. It's not controversial. It's just stuff like that.
Right.
And they're sweeping in between and they're talking about what it means to clean up popcorn that you've served. I mean, really, and I can't tell you how great it is. And I fell madly head over heels in love with Amy Baker. I haven't read her other plays. I'm hoping to see them without having read them. But on page...
So like a Nicholson Baker? Is this just anyone named Baker that's an author? You're in.
Yeah, Baker's the name for me. Baker's the name for me. And she's also, I think she's from Vermont, and everything's great about her. And
she's in a band.
She speaks beautifully. And her brother is like some sort of brilliant journalist. And it's one of these, you know, they can do everything. And so I get told that there is the College of Southern Nevada,
Yep.
North Las Vegas branch,
Yep.
which I believe refers to itself as a community college. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah. It used to be.
Nice campus, but out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, could not be further from where. I mean, it was like a 45-minute drive
Right.
from my house, and I thought we were both in Vegas, you know. And going on parkways I've never been
It
on.
is way down out there.
Way
yeah.
down out there.
It's on the other Lake Mead Boulevard.
Yeah.
We have two Lake Mead Boulevards that are as far apart as you can get.
And so I was wondering. Now, I saw what is, and I think will always be, the definitive production of the show.
Of course.
That's not true. There could be another production year that'll be even better. I don't know. I saw a production that every single nuance of it was perfect.
Right.
Okay. And now I'm going to see a community college production. And when I went in and read the program, sure enough, two of the cast members had done nothing in theaters since high school.
Right.
I mean, they were essentially in high school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They were 19 or whatever.
But, you know, they're just going straight to a community college. That is the next thing from high school. It's not like saying you or I haven't done anything since high school.
Right, which you could say. But yes, exactly that. And it's a theater that seats about 70 people, which, of course, the New York one wasn't much bigger. It's probably 200 seats. And out of those 70 people, they probably have 30 people in there. And Thursday night, North Las Vegas Community College, I considered buying the whole theater out, watching it. I was so excited. And what I found out was it is a fabulous play no matter how you see it. But I was talking to friends, talked to Emily, talked to a bunch of people, and everybody said, well, it's a Vegas version of it. They'll probably cut it down. And that's kind of the joke, right? I mean, it's kind of the joke. Would you do the pauses? You
Right.
know?
The play is about the pauses, not the words. Is that safe to say?
Well, no, the words are everything, but the pauses are part of the words. The pauses are just like a word. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's everything. So, sure enough, it was a wonderful production. They did a great job, but the 3-hour and 15-minute show in New York came in under 2 hours. They didn't cut any lines from it. And I talked to the cast afterwards, and they said their director told them that she'd seen the show in New York, and she said, guys, there's going to be a lot less sweeping. Now, here's an important artistic point. When the New York cast did it, from the time the lights came up on them till the time the scene ended, that theater was spotless. The audience would see, you would sit there watching and you would see a kernel of popcorn and you would worry that the cast member was going to miss it. Right? And they handled the mops and they handled the little brooms and dustpans perfectly. I mean, I had no doubt that the cast members in New York had practiced because they wanted to look like people who'd done this 1,000 times.
So they probably had gone into theaters and cleaned theaters for 3 weeks prior to production.
There are people in New York who would do that.
No, I understand that. I know that. That's what I'm saying. And that's the difference between the amateur production is the...
I'm really telling you, they, in the not the amateur production, the college production, they really didn't think the sweeping was important. And you could never explain to them that in theater the sweeping is really important. I mean, if you talk to Brando,
Right.
you know, if you talk to, what's his name? His name?
De Niro?
Mark Riddick. What's the fabulous guy from Bridge of Spies?
No, I don't know. I know who you're talking about,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
If you talk to Pacino, you talk to any of those guys, they would tell you if they were or Daniel Day-Lewis.
Yes.
Daniel Day-Lewis would have done 3 years in a movie theater. You know, they would tell you that like Nabokov talking about James Joyce Ulysses. He says the important part about reading that is knowing where he's going, where every step is, where he stops along the way. If you don't understand the geography, you can't understand the play. You can't understand the book. There are many actors who would tell you if you aren't cleaning that theater perfectly, you don't understand the play.
Right.
And but if you're trying to learn the lines, you're trying to understand what the play means, it's very easy to think that the sweeping doesn't matter.
Right.
Also, they didn't have the setup to throw in more trash. So they had only the trash they started with for the whole play. They didn't have every blackout someone throwing in more trash for them. The other problem with the production, which is the funniest thing ever, is everybody in the cast was too good looking. By a lot. By a real lot. These were really attractive theater students of 19 years old. So when the woman comes out to flirt heavily with the new employee, there's a kind of sadness and desperation to her flirting in the script. But there you were kind of going, who wouldn't?
Yeah. Right. Wow. This turned out great. Good luck, guy. Wow.
It's a great thing. And there is this moment in the scene. There's a scene in it where the female character does a long hip-hop song, like 5 minutes, where all she does is dance in the theater to it. All she does is dance in the theater. And in New York, it was so awkward and desperate and sad as she moved up on the chairs. And also at the same time, sexy and celebratory. It was all those things that life is, right? The woman in the play, she's really good looking and a really
Can dance.
and a really good dancer, you know? So it was just kind of watching. And also they cut it down to like 2 minutes or a minute and a half. It was watching a attractive college woman dance. Good. So, and with that, with cutting it down, which is probably, I want to say, if, of course I don't direct, but if I were producing this and talking to the director and she said, no. In New York, 3 hours, 50 minutes is exactly right. For a college production, we've got to cut it down. We can't do these pauses. I would have probably, even though I said that's all that matters, I would have probably said, yeah, probably can cut it down.
Right.
Probably should. What I'm saying is I think she made the right choice. And I also think that the casting, they had to go
Well, who they've got.
with the best actors they've got who end up being too good looking, which is really funny. I saw the community college production, and it was too fast paced, too witty, and they were too good looking. Yeah, you said that backwards. You said that the community college was too fast paced and too good looking. No, I meant that. No, you meant New York was fast paced, good looking, and when they did it at community college, they dragged it and they weren't really up to speed and looks. No, the opposite.
You know, in theory, acting is about a lot of the attractiveness is a very, very important factor in it.
Sure.
But as we've moved forward, we're moving away from that. We really are moving into this is about people, and so it should look like people that we know.
Yeah.
You know, and I bet there's still the culture of theater of, well, you're the best looking girl, you should be in theater.
Yeah. But it's a wonderful, wonderful play. And I'll tell you, I haven't read it on the page, but I've been told by everybody that did read it on the page that it's absolutely fabulous on the page. I mean, it's just amazing with fabulous writing how much she gets. You know, you watch movies and you watch TV, and you got to have like 2 murders and guns,
right?
All this stuff, and there's so much to be shared of another person's heart. Without that, there's so much of. I also want to stress this, which is probably the most difficult thing Annie Baker does, is she's writing about people who are cleaning theater for a living and who are in a dead area of Western Massachusetts, where I'm from. Mm-hmm. And I went in with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, saying,
right.
Is this, Annie Baker went to fancy schools, you know what I mean? She's an intellectual,
Right.
she's
We're
really
talking
smart.
about my people.
Are we going to go and watch her do a play where rich New Yorkers make fun of the people I grew up with, and indeed my family?
Yeah.
Is that what we're going to see? Is that what this is going to be? Because, boy, isn't it funny that someone cleans a theater for a living? And isn't it funny that they have weird accents? And isn't it funny? And there is not the slightest bit of that. As a matter of fact, I wanted so badly, I couldn't work it out, but I wanted so badly for my nephews who've worked in theaters and who are have worked
right.
minimum wage jobs and have that accent, and who I love dearly. I wanted to go with them to the show. I had no sort of.
They would have gone, yeah, this is like being at work. Why would I sit through this, Penn?
Well, that's my whole point. It's not. There's a whole thing there. It's just so beautiful. So congratulations to the Flick production.
CSN, yeah, sure.
In CSN, they did a fabulous, fabulous job, and it's a wonderful show, and also really, really smart and beautiful to pick that play to do.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's what theater should be doing at colleges, is really stretching out and doing difficult stuff. This was not
right.
This was not them doing Pippin.
They didn't do Annie again. That's why I wasn't there. I was out at the ranch watching Annie.
Yeah. But it was really great. I also want to say about this same subject. I never talk about racial stuff on the show, because who gives a fuck what I think about
the old
that.
white guy, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that. But something really remarkable happened to me. I kept thinking of Bob Dylan's line, I feel like my soul is beginning to expand. Mm-hmm. Look into my heart and you will sort of understand. I've been reading all this stuff, Enlightenment Now, the Pinker book, about how things are getting better. And I've been thinking so much about we and them. I've been obsessed with we and them. And I read stuff on Facebook and on Twitter where they say, Trump supporters, they think this.
Right.
And I just read that, and every time I see the word they now, I blanch. I just kind of go, there's no they. There's no they.
There's only we. Yeah.
There's either us or there's individuals. There's no sort of, I don't want any of these lines anymore. And I'm trying so hard to not do any identities whatsoever. Now, I realize that's easy for me. I listened to the podcast of Sam Harris and Ezra Klein, where they talk about this exact thing of identity politics, and it's really, really not supposed to be, but really, really funny podcast because neither one of them hears anything the other person says. It's just two monologues that they do
Played at the same time.
at each other. It's really great.
You should stage it. Long pauses between it.
So, I want to. So I've also been talking a lot about hypocrisy.
Yeah. About the benefits of hypocrisy.
Everybody talks about how hypocrisy is the worst thing in the world. Oh, this guy comes out against gays and legislation against gays, and then here he is having sex in a men's room with a guy. And I actually said this, and it was written on a Starbucks cup. But I don't have much of a problem with hypocrisy. If you say one thing and do another, you've doubled the chance of me agreeing with you.
Right.
I think when you have a strong anti-gay legislator and he is caught having sex with a man, we should say, oh boy, he's having sex with a man. Isn't that great? I hope he loved it. And he should stop doing the anti-gay stuff. We shouldn't do this kind of Perry Mason, I've got one sentence going to bring you down, but didn't you say
Right.
that, and then you did this? And then it always sounds to me like in order to make that argument, you have to act like the thing they're doing is wrong. And we don't want to do that.
Yeah, okay.
We don't want to do that, right? You have to act like, and then he's having sex with a man. No, and then he's having sex with a man. Isn't that great? Isn't that great that a guy that's been against that is able to overcome that and have
Right.
sex with a man? Isn't that fabulous? So I know hypocrisy always seems cheesy and theatrical and not from the heart. If you meet somebody who's been saying anti-gay stuff their whole life, and then you find out they're having gay sex, you want to say to them, how are we going to stop
Right.
this anti-gay stuff
It's
going
like
on?
complaining about politicians who what they call change horses midstream.
Yeah.
You can learn stuff.
Yeah. It's all
Sometimes you
about-
learn things.
But so I'm trying really, really hard every time anybody around me uses we or they to just do an automatic underline of it. Like, what do we mean by that? What do we mean by that? Kind of like when someone says Harvard, I say cock. I want to train myself, like when someone sneezes, to say that's funny, to just say when they say they, who do they mean? Like I just said they. When somebody says, when an individual uses that word, we or they, what battle lines are they drawing? And then it just hit me that when I watch a television show, I identify with people based on totally the wrong stuff. So I did this thing. I had a couple of experiences that aren't going to seem profound, but to me were. I went to this radio group. They own a lot of radio stations. They wanted me to come to a meet and greet that they were having for their people. They wanted me to be there because I had done some VO for them years ago. So Glenn wanted me to go over there, meet some people, hang out. This is what I hate. I hate meeting strangers and having a conversation. I don't mind posing for pictures and saying, but I don't want to really talk to them.
Right.
And I went in, I feel like my soul is beginning to expand. Look into my heart and you will sort of understand. I went in there going, these people, I mean, to get all Will Rogers on you, are just friends I haven't met. So my good friend Ron Gomes, who is a friend of mine in New
Friend
York.
you have met?
Yeah. I just pictured every person as him. This is Ron Gomes meeting for the first time. What's that like? And I had this incredibly different experience. I mean, Glenn said it was a different person walking around. I was just open. I wasn't all shut down and scared. I just kind of went, there's nobody here to be afraid of. No one's going to rip me apart. We're all here they're just having a good time. And yeah, some of them are drinking and that makes me uncomfortable, but maybe it doesn't have to. What do I care? So then I had that experience. Then the next morning, I had to get up wicked early and go to this CW thing for the affiliates.
Okay.
For the affiliates. And so this is all people that run stations locally, and they show Fool Us. So I had to go on stage, and I did a card trick. Teller couldn't do it because Teller was directing Shakespeare. Oh, directing Shakespeare.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah, he's directing Shakespeare. He's doing Macbeth in Chicago. And Teller is on his last nerve. He's doing 4 shows a week of Penn and Teller, and then going 3 days to Chicago and directing, then coming back. So Teller may not live through this. So I'm getting used to doing stuff alone. And so I go to the CW and I do my little hunk. And then I meet this guy, Cress Williams. And Cress Williams is the star of a show called Black Lightning, which is a superhero show, you know? And he gives his speech, and I decide that instead of sitting there running over my lines and thinking about what he's doing wrong on stage that I can do better when I go up after, he's on the same network as us, on the CW, right? And he's doing this speech about how, yeah, it's a superhero show, yeah, I wear a cape, you know, but there's some social consciousness there, and children are inspired by this, and we're trying to get this, and this going, and here's what I do in my life. And I try, just an experiment, to listen to him. And then when we're waiting for me to be introduced in between, I try for another experiment. Instead of saying, hi, my name's Penn, did a great spot up there, I try talking to him.
Right.
Never thought of doing that. For like 2 minutes, I talk to him. Then I go on stage and do my hunk. It goes well. I come off stage. Cress and I have to pose for pictures. And I all of a sudden have this feeling that I never have, that we're the same guy. He get up this morning. He goes in. He has to do his
tired.
10 minutes.
It's too early for him.
He's doing that whole thing. He's a little uncomfortable. He's got a show on the CW that he's happy about. He's proud of. He hopes it gets another season. He just got another season. Hopes he gets a season beyond that. He's working hard. He's done all this stuff. And I feel like I'm exactly the same guy as him. So then I go home, and my family goes to bed early out of a show that night. Family goes to bed, and I'm alone in the house, and I'm going to, sick of reading, sick of practicing, so I'm going to sit down and watch TV. And I go, oh, I'll watch Black Lightning. So I bring up Black Lightning, and this is probably the most humiliating, embarrassing thing I've ever said on the show. As I'm watching Black Lightning, I feel this thing happen to me, or I'm identifying with the lead character. Now, you're supposed to. But this lead character is African-American, inner city, right? And there's some sort of click that happens that I realize that when I'm watching shows, I'm identifying with the person who shares this identity with me. And I'm watching Cress Williams as his character, Black Lightning, which has some great lines in it. It's a good show. Has some great lines in it where he's a superhero, right? And he's running through the town, and someone's trying to find him and says, have you seen that guy here who's dressed like he's in the Funkadelics? Which is a great line, which I just love, right? So I'm watching, and I realize as he's talking to his children, and he's putting the children to bed and stuff, that this is exactly my experience. And I have everything in common with him, and his children are the right age and stuff like that. And all of a sudden, this show that's a superhero show that I'm going to be pulled out of, oh, I'm watching an African-American superhero show, suddenly isn't that anymore. Suddenly I'm Black Lightning. I'm watching it. So I go, this is a really big deal. And I also say to myself, which a promise I've made many times, I can't talk to anybody about this. Because what I'm actually saying is I have started to identify with an African-American character on a show. And everybody I say this to is going to go, oh, you fucking racist piece of shit. Don't you do that every time? And the fact of the matter is, if you'd asked me 2 weeks ago, don't you identify with the lead character regardless of what they look like? I would have said, well, of course I do. That's the way drama works. I have to be identified.
It's written that way. That's why they created it.
But there's something I felt different. Of course, I identified with that character before, but something was different. So then we go another step, right? And I'm watching this show for the same reason. I'm watching Bosch, which is a show on Amazon. It's just a cop show, right? And I'm watching it, and I suddenly have this thing flood over me where I go, I'm identifying with the lead character. I am absolutely Bosch as I watch this. Now, Bosch has a horrible temper. He treats people really badly. He's a military guy. He is an orphan. He has all these anger issues, and he's a very violent guy. Now there's the desk sergeant, who is a woman, who is closer to my age. She seems to be temperate. She's the person that I am in this scene.
Right.
I'm her. And why did I never think that I was her when I watched this show last week? Because of gender? And then it hits me like a diamond bullet in my forehead. I go, wait a minute. I'm not James Bond. I am so far from James Bond. I have none of the background of James Bond. I don't respect James Bond. I got nothing to do with James Bond. When I'm watching this, why aren't I Moneypenny? I have much more in common with Moneypenny. I am Moneypenny. I would work in the office, see James Bond come in. I would think, boy, he's really, really sexy. Boy, my job is duller than him. But boy, I wouldn't want to go out and get blown up and shot at. I am Moneypenny. I can't even aspire to be Q because I can't build things. Now, I know that one of the things we're doing when we're watching art is we are empathizing with people who aren't like us. That's a really important thing. That's what makes art so valuable. Empathizing with people who aren't like us is what art is. But why, if I'm empathizing with someone who's not like me, is the person always fucking white and male? How come that's happening? Right? Right? Why aren't I identifying in this scene to expand my soul? Why aren't I identifying with the African American woman?
Because it was written.
Exactly.
Sorry, I don't really want to have an answer. I want you to keep yelling, but it was specifically designed for you to identify with that lead character.
Exactly. But I'm saying that when the lead character, okay, is not, I mean, and
Right.
all lead
Not you in any way.
all lead characters are. I mean, we know this, and this is a big problem with Hollywood, and we're not discovering this. Everybody knows it. The real problem is that all the lead characters are white and male.
Yes.
We know that. And everybody else just services the plot to them. But when I say everybody, as always, I don't mean everybody. There are shows that feature people that are not cis male white, right? There are people that don't. And when they are the lead character in a scene, I believe there was an identification that I was missing. I'm trying to think back on when I watched Shaft. Okay?
Okay.
You know, he's the black private dick who's a sex machine for all the chicks.
I've heard that.
When I watched Shaft the first time, which I would have been 20, whatever I was, right? I watched Shaft the first time. I'm trying to remember if I watched Shaft exactly the way I watched James Bond. Because, oh, by the way, I have exactly as much in common with Shaft as I do with James Bond. Does anything I'm saying make sense? No, not to you.
I'm not following it so far.
Okay. You following me at all?
I'm entirely on board, yeah.
Okay.
And we don't have to go back as far as Shaft. We've got Robert J. Israel, Esquire.
Uh-huh.
Was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. And
Neither one of us, I believe, identified. We identified more with the talking horse than Robert J. Israel.
yeah. And I think that I'm not talking about not following the plot and not following their hopes and dreams. I'm talking about something that happens in art, in theater, and in novels where for a moment you are that person. And I'm saying that...
Just observing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That I am observing as opposed to crossing that line and becoming.
Okay.
And there was a moment when I was watching Black Lightning when I was talking to my children while he was talking to his children. I was not watching the lead character do that. I was doing it.
You were participating.
And it was an incredible feeling that just washed over me. And then I said afterwards, you'll never be able to explain this to anybody. You're just going to come off as an asshole. And I said, so don't ever talk about this. Don't ever talk about this. And then 5 days later, I went into my notes and wrote down Black Lightning identification in my notes for today. Maybe that was a huge mistake. But I'm just telling you, I feel like my soul is beginning to expand. Look into my heart and you will sort of understand. All the stuff that they've been drilling into my head about minority characters in art not being properly represented. They've been drilling that into my head for 20 years. I've always thought I understood, and I never did. I never understood it before at all. It has to do not with how many lines they're given or where they are or what they're doing in the characters. By they, I mean the characters. It's not about that. It's about if your heart goes across. And then I thought about if I had been raised African American and female, and I had watched Goldfinger at the same age that I watched it, would I have been James Bond? Would I have been James Bond? Would I have been James Bond? Could I have sat there in the theater and said, I'm James Bond? Now, I'm doing two things that are contradictory there, because I'm saying that Hollywood needs to give different people, needs to have a black female James Bond. That's one thing I'm saying. But the other thing I'm saying is, as an audience, I've got to do that other piece of work. And I don't think I have ever written or created a character that wasn't a lot like me in a very, very superficial way. I think the important part of this is that I have nothing in common with James Bond. I think that's the most important thing. And yet, when I'm watching that, I can identify. And I'm not sure that's true for characters that aren't that. And I think that's where we have to go. And with Enlightenment Now, with Pinker, he talks a lot about that. You know, that empathy, that identification. There is in me and us and them that these people are like me. And the fact of the matter is that they either are not like me at all or everybody's like me. And I can't have it both ways.
I think they're all like you.
Yeah, I can't have it both ways. But no, both of those things are true. I mean, you can't go in the middle. That's all I'm saying. You can either say, I'm watching this character on the screen, and these are the differences between me as an individual and that person's individual. I'm fine with that. Or you can say, we share the same humanity. But you can't say, I identify more with that character because in this superficial bullshit level, we share something. Oh, that guy's tall. Oh, that guy wears glasses. I don't give a fuck. Let's talk about the individual and go right to the heart. That's all I'm saying. What I'm saying is another complicated way for me to say hippie bullshit. which is all I ever say. But you see what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
You still understand, right, Godot?
I'm getting closer. I'm starting to see what you're talking about, you know?
I just think that that both sides have to do that. We need. By the way, you know, a lot of people don't like that movie, the Israel Esquire.
Right.
Yeah, they really don't. I loved it.
I did too.
I loved it. Absolutely loved it. And I think that was part of what set me up for this revelation that's not a revelation to anybody but me. But I think I can watch stupid TV better now. I think
I'm curious where you land on Jackie Chan.
Good question. Perfect question. When I watch a Jackie Chan movie, am I Jackie Chan? I think I am. I think I am Jackie Chan.
So is Rush Hour the hardest thing you ever watched?
I think I am.
Well, here's what's different is there's that one superficial thing that he's goofy and we're goofy.
Yeah.
And goofy stuff happens to us.
Yeah, Goofy helps.
And we connect with that.
Goofy helps a lot. Goofy helps a real lot. But
where otherwise, there's nothing there in common.
No.
We don't have 30 years of wushu and the Beijing opera and all that behind us.
And we are also, I believe, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm less physically fit than Jackie Chan.
And if I hit someone in the face, we both would cry. A lot.
Yeah, it's just I'm just really obsessed lately with this us and them thing, and I really think the team sports thing, I mean, I think that Trump could deliver us from a lot of this. I think that Trump is making things so crystal clear that the us and them is being used against us in a really bad way. I think that trying to understand that partisan, breakdown is just wrong.
Right.
And I think we not only need to fill Hollywood much more diverse and do all that, and I agree with all that and giving everybody power, but also the audience can do some work to say, listen, you either identify with everybody or you identify with nobody. You either watch from a distance or you're in the scene, but you don't get to pick and choose the people that look the most like you. I'm not saying that's a rule for everybody. That's a rule for me. I no longer get to pick and choose the people that look like me to be in the movie. And I had this epiphany that might come down to simply, I'm not James Bond. I don't drink martinis, shaken not stirred. I don't drink at all. I don't hit people. I don't have a license to kill.
Maybe that's the main difference.
But on top of that, I don't want a license to kill.
Right.
I don't.
No.
I don't want to kill anybody. I don't want to hit anybody. And so I can still watch things that are exciting that way. But maybe the next time I watch it, I'll be Moneypenny. I hope I am.
I don't know that you have we're allowed the option to be Moneypenny. I don't think there's enough time with Moneypenny.
In those scenes, you are.
Okay.
When he walks in, you could identify. You have that happen. You have happened where you identify with a smaller character.
Yeah.
It's not for the whole movie. I'm talking about, micro divisions. You can do that. I think so. Anyway, I don't know if someone understood what I'm saying, they could write in. If someone thinks that what I said is awful and terrible, you're probably right. I'm probably just confessing to very bad stuff that I'm hoping I'm getting better at. That's all. And now we're going to do a bank show, aren't we?
Yeah.
But that was Penn Sunday School. Tight. Like David Byrne. Cha-cha-cha.
There's not enough marching in this show.
You become naked. That's all I'm saying, All I'm saying is you become naked. I'm saying nothing besides that on every show all the way through. It's just you become naked. And by the way, Black Lightning, really good show. And Chris Williams is wonderful. And the outfit does look like P-Funk. Sunday School. And I love you.
I guess now we have to buy Jera in-ear monitor.
What's that?
Said I guess now we have to buy Jera in-ear monitor, wireless.
Wireless in-ear monitor.
For the timing.
Oh, yeah, we do.
Bye-bye, everybody.